We are getting this breaking news right now. China's ambassador to Washington telling Reuters that China is hoping for a deal with the U.S. on trade and warns of dire consequences if the trade war leads to an economic separation. Now, President Trump already predicting if there is no breakthrough at the G20 meeting, and he's supposed to meet with Xi Jinping on Saturday, the chance that he won't go through with further hiking of tariffs on Chinese goods is, quote, highly unlikely. President Trump telling the Wall Street Journal that he'll be ready to raise from 10% to 25% the tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods, and that will start January 1. Not only that, the president declaring as well, quote, if we don't make a deal, then I'm going to put the $267 billion additional on at a tariff rate of either 10% or 25%. Bob Hormats was in China last week. This is his first interview since he returned. The former Undersecretary of State for Economic Growth and the Environment is joining us now. All right. What's the atmosphere on the ground there like right now?
Well, so far, this has not had a major negative impact on China. The Chinese economy is weakening a little bit, but the trade problems have really not hit the economy because a lot of companies in the United States have been doing early stage orders to build up a lot of inventory in case higher tariffs are imposed.
Let's put that aside then. They've got to be scared. I hear from people on the ground there, they're extremely nervous about this.
They are very nervous. They're very nervous about what could happen in the eventuality that the president does the kind of things he's threatening to do, because this is their biggest market and they have invested a lot of money in continuing to serve this market. And there's a lot of interrelationship between Chinese companies and American companies. A lot of American companies source intermediate products from China. So, of course, they'll have an impact not only in China, but also in the United States and, of course, American consumers.
They will meet face-to-face on Saturday. They may even see each other before then because, of course, at the G20 you have what's called the family photo, which is this group photo of the 19 leaders and the European Union members. So it actually ends up being more than 20 people. But how do you suppose they are going to come together to meet eye to eye? And do you have hopes for some type of concrete deal? Because the market is waiting and watching.
Well, I would love to see a deal the kind that Larry Kudlow was talking about. He was very positive that he thought there could be a deal, but then he identified a number of things that had to happen in order for a deal actually to occur. He said
forced technology transfers must be solved. He wants tariff and non-tariff barriers dropped, to go away. He wants ownership issues because the Chinese kind of require that you have a joint venture with a Chinese company on the ground, and then, of course, they end up borrowing the intellectual property of the U.S. company. But he wants zero tariff, zero subsidies. Is President Trump going to walk away on Saturday with all of those things?
I think the probability of a deal of that magnitude, of a breakthrough on all those issues, is highly unlikely, because a lot of work would have to go into putting that together. And so far as I've seen, we haven't really had all the preliminary meetings of people at middle and upper levels making the kind of arrangements to have a deal like that occur. I think looking for a breakthrough would be very optimistic. Setting up a process for moving ahead to deal with those issues would be possible. In other words, if the leaders were to say, we want our top people to sit down and deal with issue X, Y, and Z, that would be something that I think could happen. The question is, does that satisfy President Trump?
I think the markets believe you. We just hit session highs, the Dow up 87. We had been down more than 240 points. So it's been a wild swing, but holding to the upside here. I do need to ask you about Vladimir Putin. He, too, will be there. We just had a very serious incident Sunday in what's called the Kerch Strait, which you know.
Yes.
The Russians, in one of their ships, they rammed and then fired and seized 3 Ukrainian boats. There are huge tensions between these 3 countries. These were supposedly international waters. The strait is supposedly navigable by both countries, and Russia is now saying, nope, you couldn't go through. They tried to stop these Ukrainian ships. How much of the oxygen will be taken out of the room when it comes to that issue? And why do you think Vladimir Putin, if the Russians started this, and it looks like they did that? Is he trying to make sure he's on the front page down here in Argentina?
There is probably some of that. He's testing Poroshenko on the water, on this particular area of contested water where the Ukrainians and the Russians have been able to navigate freely without major incident for quite some time. Once in a while, there are problems. Yeah. But basically, he's saying, look, I'm now exerting my power. I have some muscle here. And of course, the Ukrainians can't really respond navally because they just don't have the capability. But now they've declared martial law. Poroshenko's declared martial law in 10 provinces of Ukraine to try to at least demonstrate that Ukraine is going to resist the Russians if they use this as a pretext for moving their troops.
Well, Mike Pompeo, of course, said very, very clearly this has got to stop, and we'll be watching it closely. Bob, thank you.